Now we could go ahead and create custom columns, but like I told you, we're going to do that in another module later on. What we want to do is simply go ahead and add some columns that already exist. We have a lot of columns that are available to us, and we just have to click on them to add them to this list. So we're going to go up to our ribbon here, up to the list tab, and we're going to go all the way down to the right and click on list settings. And we're going to slide down here a little bit, and you'll see we have a bunch of options here, but the one we want is add from existing site columns. We're going to click there, and we see we have a big list of columns that we can add. Now, the first thing we see is select site columns from all groups, and we have a drop down. And if we know exactly what kind of column we want, and we know where to find it, and that'll come with time. As you use these more, you'll get to learn what's where. You can see that we can narrow down the columns into all of these different groups. Well, for us, I would rather show us all of the columns that we have available. Take a look so you can really see what's in here, and we'll go through and we'll pick the ones that we want. So let's start with, say, address. Let's go ahead and add that. Or you know what? Rather than address, let's remove that. I've got another one I want instead of address. Let's go ahead, aliases, anniversary. You see there's a ton of columns in here that we can go ahead and add. We're going to add business phone. We are going to add, look at that, company. We all know that we all work for Global Mantic, so we probably don't need that. Main phone. Photos, all kinds of stuff in here, isn't it? Look at that. Lots and lots of things. Date created, modified, department. Yeah, let's add department. That's one that we want. And email. We do want email. First name, we'll take that. Full name, well, we've already got one column that has the full name. We're going to deal with all of that in a little bit. Home addresses, fax, address, lots and lots of stuff. You getting tired of looking at these yet? Wait, there it is. Job title, that's the one I want. Now, I think that I have everything I need. Phone, department, email, name, and job title. Those are all the ones that we need. We could even add manager's name if we so felt. You see lots and lots of stuff that we can go ahead and add to this list. These are already existing columns that we can add. But we're fine with that. We're fine with this list that we have. So what we're going to do is go down here, and I want to point out here, add to the default view. Remember that this is checked. We're going to work with views later on in this lesson. So we're going to click OK. We'll go back to our list and see that now we have a lot more columns of information. So let's go ahead, let's select that, and we'll go up to the items tab, and we can edit the item. See that? We have a lot more places to go ahead and add information. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this out. You don't have to watch. I'll be right back. All right, I've gone ahead and added all of the information you'll see for Jerry, and we're going to simply save that. All right, so there's our list. And as Jerry looks at it, he says, you know what? There's a couple more columns I want to add. How do I do that? Well, it's very simple. We go ahead and we go back up to List tab, go over to our list settings, and look, now we have a list of our columns, and we can still go ahead and add from existing columns. We can go ahead and keep adding more of these columns. So what I want is, if I can find it, location, and, well, let's add another one. Let's go ahead and add manager's name, and let's choose OK. Then we go back, and now we can see we have two new columns. So let's go ahead and let's edit those. We can simply click on the item, go up to our items tab, and click on edit item, and it opens this window back up. So we'll fill these out. All right. Very simple. All right, our list looks pretty good. It's still not quite right, but don't worry, we're going to work on that. We got a couple of things we want to do first. Now, Jerry, after doing this, and I know we just added these columns, but he realizes there really was no point in having a location column because everybody on the team is in Chicago. So we can get rid of that column. And we still have the problem of this first column, the title, and it has Jerry's full name in it. Well, maybe what we can do is get rid of the location column, get rid of the title column, and add a column for last name because we already have first name. Well, let's go ahead and let's try and do that. We're going to go up to our list tab again and go down to list settings. So, first thing we want to do is get rid of the location column. So we'll click here on location and notice we have a button to delete that column. This column will be removed and all the data stored in the column will be permanently deleted. Are you sure you want to delete this column? Well, I am. So we're going to go ahead and say OK. And if we look at our columns now, we see that the location is gone. Now, we said we wanted to get rid of the title column, so let's go ahead and click there. And we have a few more options, but also notice that we don't have a delete button. We can't get rid of that first column. Our list has to have at least one column, and it has to be this first one that came with when we created the list. So, what does that leave us? What option does that leave us? Well, we have the column name. We can change the column from title to last name. We don't have, we gotta have at least one column. It just doesn't have to be called title. So we can change that to last name and we'll be able to still have the columns that we need. And you can add a description. Now you'll notice there's a few more things in here. And like I told you earlier, all of the different columns have different specifications, different properties attached to them. Now, this one, by default, is require that this column contains information. And we're going to say yes. Do we want to enforce unique values? Not on the last name. Who knows? We may have a bunch of people named Smith or Jones or whatever it is. So we don't want to do that for this, but there are some instances where you might want to not have more than one item with the same name. We can set the maximum number of characters, and 255 is just fine. And the default value for this, because it is essentially just a single line of text column, is text. We'll deal with calculated value in a little bit, so hang in there. That's for a little bit later in the course. So all of this is good. We're going to choose OK. Let's go back to our list and see now that first column is called last name. So we don't need Jerry Watts in there. We want to go ahead and edit it. So we're going to click that again, go to items, edit the item, and change that from Jerry Watts simply to Watts. And there we have it. Our list is looking pretty good now, isn't it? Except what's wrong? I know you're sitting there thinking, hey, this list could probably be in a better order. These columns I would rather have like last name first, then first name, then maybe the department. We can change the order of these columns, and we're going to do that by changing the view. But first, let me go ahead and fill out the rest of this list. We're going to get a lot more names in here, or I should say Jerry is. And we'll come right back. Again, you don't have to sit there and watch me do it. You've seen it. It's pretty simple. I'll be right back. So hang in there with me. All right, and we're back. And here is our list, looking a lot more full than it did before. Now, before we go ahead and work with the views, there's one more thing I want to go ahead and go over with you. So we're going to go back up to our list tab and our list settings. And when we look at our columns, we'll notice that over here we have a check mark next to the last name column, and it says required. We looked at this when we were looking at these before. I pointed this out that was required, that this column contains information. This was the original column that was created when we created our list. And by default, it is required that this column contains information. Now we can turn it off if we want. Choose OK. and see that that's gone. Now, if we wanted to go ahead and require another column to have information, let's go to manager's name. Notice that I don't have that option. I can't select that. Remember, I told you when we were selecting the existing columns that they all have different properties. And this column, the manager's name, is not one that has that specific property, that ability to require that it has that information in it. So whoever created this column decided, well, this was not one that most people are going to say will require that information. But if for whatever reason you wanted it to be, you needed that, you could create it as a custom column. And like I told you, we're going to do that in another module. So don't worry about that. We'll get there eventually. But we can't require that column to have information right now. But let's do another one. Let's go back. Let's turn it back on the last name, because I want to show you what happens when you try to add an item and skip the required column. So we're going to skip last name. We're going to go to business phone, and what we're going to do is we're going to use Cheryl Hayes. Cheryl is one of our sales managers, so I'll put in her information. So we're going to save that, and see that? It's just that simple. You can't leave this blank. So we will go and add that information. That is what's going to happen if you try to create an item that doesn't have the required information in one of those required information columns. All right, let's go ahead now and let's change the view.